Hey guys, this is Jake at Canadian Cutting Edge, and this is the FKU162 by Kuby. Some places it's just called KU162. D2 steel, several colors on a handle. Very nice knife. Now, those of you who are watching on something other than a cell phone, you'll probably notice the resolution is a little bit lower, and that's because I'm using a borrowed cell phone, and it doesn't have the power that the cell phone that I'm missing had. So I am working very hard at getting another cell phone. Thank you to everybody who's helping me make that happen. Mine got stolen. So thank you to those of you guys who are sending me a little bit of support to help me pay for a new phone. This knife is a full-size folder that feels quite good that I think you should be interested in. So watch this video of the Kubey KU162 coming at you right now. You can get this knife with 3 different G10 colors. This green, a nice sort of tan sandy brown, and black. The black version has an option of this satin blade or a satin blade with the grinds, both the swedge and the main grind here, being coated in black. It looks rather sharp. I'll show you some pictures of those. So all of these, $27 each at Kuby Knife. That's where I got mine. I got mine sent to me by Kuby Knife. So yes, this is a totally biased review. I'm being facetious. I try very hard to be objective and clear, and I tell every vendor and manufacturer that I ever work with that unless I'm totally free to say anything I want, I'm not going to work with you. And all of them, at least all the ones I work with, say, yes, that's exactly what we want too. We don't want you to be fudging it, because then our customers will be misled, and then they'll be even more ticked off later on if our product doesn't measure up to what you say. So all reputable companies want good, honest reviews. They don't want to supply products to people who are just going to be yes men and just say all kinds of great things when they don't really have all those great things. This knife, it's sort of the budget version of Kuby's line. Well, it's in the budget line of Kuby's knives. At $27 US, you get D2 steel, you get proper G10, you get a nice clip, you get skeletonized liners and nice thick steel liners. This one's got an open pillar construction, and it's got nice hourglass shaped pillars there, and not just cheap little straight posts. You got a nice thick stop pin there. You get ball bearings and great action. This knife is awesome. I would really like if they would make a thumb stud version as well. That would be very good. There's some people that don't really like flippers, but would prefer thumb studs. They wouldn't have to change the liners or the shape of the handle at all. And just throw in thumb studs. Maybe grind it down a little bit here for access to the thumb stud, depending on the shape and size of the thumb stud. But be that as it may, what you have is a good full-size folder, very good steel. We've got a sort of unique blade shape, just like the other Kuby that we looked at, which was more of a midline knife. A little bit under, or right around, a bit under $100. This knife, it's got a bit of a riser on the thumb rest with some jimping, and then it's got a dip, and it comes up, and then it's got a drop down. Nice swedge all the way across there. So I'm calling this a drop point with a recurve. So really nice belly there, and just a slight recurve here. Nothing significant. Most people should be able to sharpen this recurve on their own without any major difficulties. Maybe the odd minor difficulty if you're not used to sharpening recurves. The narrower the stone that you use when you're sharpening a knife that has a recurve, the better off you'll be. And so for those, I really like, I'll show it to you because I've forgotten the name, which stones I really like for this. I really like these stones by Boride Engineered Abrasives. This is an American company, but you can find these a lot of different suppliers. The guys in Russia that I get a lot of my stuff from sell the Boride ones. And I really like the CH CS-HD line of stones. And so they're narrow, 1/2 inch wide. And I got a supply of these aluminum blanks. And I used just a little bit of epoxy to epoxy these on there. And that makes it a narrow enough stone that you can slide it through here while you're sharpening. And you can grind a recurve like this, no problem at all. Your average stones are like twice this width or sometimes a bit more than that yet. So this is a really, really good choice if you've got a sharpening system, especially if you go ahead and buy these blanks. I'll put some links to these boride stones, either directly from boride, or it's a little bit easier to buy them from some vendors that have sharpening items, because boride generally deals with distributors and companies that use a whole lot of them. And it's a little bit tricky to navigate their website to get stones directly as a consumer. What do we have here? We've got a really nice grind on this D2 and a nice thickness of steel, thick, heavy liner, thick, heavy G10. This makes for a knife that has a feel of robustness, of chunky, robust, solid knife. And my experience of using it backs that up. So the knife, most knives are like 1/2 inch thick. This guy's more like 0.6 of an inch. It's just a little bit extra. The corners are just slightly rounded, and that gives it sort of a chunky kind of feeling in your hand. You can still get a very good grip, like a reverse grip is simply awesome on this knife. And your regular grip, fist grip, saber grip, and even a bit of a pinch grip, those all work very, very well. It's a good knife in the hand, and it just feels rock solid, and that's because it is. The pocket clip here, you've got just under an inch, about a little over 3/4, about 7/8 of an inch of the knife sticking out of your pocket. So that's a little over 2 centimeters. I'll show you what that looks like. You put the knife in and it fits below that tab very easily. And then you just shove her on down there and it holds very, very well. Very good grip on the pocket with that little bit of a dimple on the pocket clip. It's a fairly thick pocket clip compared to some. It doesn't take a lot of extra steel to make it a super robust pocket clip, and it holds very, very well indeed. You've got Torx screws all over, which is really good, and they're made to some high tolerances. I took this knife apart and to get the pictures of the inside, and there's not a lot of play on these screws. It simply is a really good, well-built knife. Your lanyard hole is fairly small. You can fit 550 paracord through there if you heat up the end of your paracord and sort of squish it and make it the right round shape, and then you can shove it through there. So that's a fairly tight fit, but it does work. I don't use lanyards on most folding knives anyway, so for me, that's not a big deal at all. So let's show you the inside of the knife right now. I'll show you the pictures of the liners that are done and the ball bearings. So there you go. It's a good, well-built knife. The flipper tab is just a little bit behind the center of the pivot. And so you can push straight down and it'll just suddenly go flying. I am pushing just ever so slightly backward. And since there's some jimping on there, you can always just use the light switch method and just be pulling straight back as well. And you can just hear that solid thunk when it opens up. I love that sound. The jimping on the thumb riser here is not very deep, but it does give you a bit of extra grip, so that's done very well. No other jimping except for on the liner release right there, and the liner release tab sits just a little bit proud of the liner on this side, but you can easily get your thumb in there to activate that release with either hand. No problem at all. Left-handed, it just works. Right-handed, it just works as well. Easy to use. The pattern on the G10 is basically flat with a texture on there, basic texture, good grip, rock solid knife. If you're looking for a solid knife and you don't want to spend a lot of money, go to kubeyknife.com. I'll have links down below so that makes it even easier for you. Like I said, they've got this in 4 colors, and the one link will take you to all 4 of their colors. They've got plenty of them in stock right now. The lockup is solid, no blade play side to side, up and down. Lockup here is exactly where I like a brand new knife to be. I'll show you a close-up picture in this orientation so you can see how much room that lock has to move all the way across over time as it wears. The alignment, perfect when the blade is closed. Let's give you the measurements. We've got a cutting edge of 8.45 centimeters, 3.32 inches. Blade length, so tip to the G10, 8.75 centimeters, that's 3.45 inches. The blade thickness is 3.4 millimeters, that's 0.134 inches. The blade depth is biggest right there, 2.37 centimeters, that's 0.933 of an inch. The thickness of the edge behind the grind is 0.54 millimeters. That's 0.021 of an inch. 21 thousandths. Perfect. I really, really like that. The grind angle, on the Kuby side, it's 23.3 degrees. And on this side, it's 21.8 degrees. Very, very few knives in this budget range are done that well. So from the factory, they did a great job grinding this. The cutting edge on almost every knife you'll buy, at least a budget knife, is ground by hand, and that's why they're not perfectly at exact 20 degrees on both sides, and they usually differ from one side to another. That's just the nature of grinding a cutting edge. But they've done a great job with the thickness and the consistency of the grind and the grind angle. Let's talk about the handle now. The handle length is 11.5 centimeters, 4.52 inches. The grip area between my thumbs here is 9.5 centimeters, almost 3 3/4 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip, is 1.47 centimeters. That's 0.579, so just over half an inch, close to 0.6, like I said earlier. The handle depth is biggest right here, and that is 2.48 centimeters. That's 0.977 inches. And when you close the blade at the same spot there, it's 3.18 centimeters, 1 1/4 inches. The total length of the knife with the blade deployed is 20.22 centimeters, which is 7.96 inches. So basically an 8-inch knife all told. So an 8-inch knife with a almost 3.5-inch blade is perfect. The balance point is just right there. So just ever so very tiny bit behind where I prefer. I prefer it to be right there. You can barely see a difference. Awesome. So the weight of this knife. Oh, I forgot to measure the weight of this knife. I'll put the weight on the screen right here. It's not too heavy. There's no concern. It feels like it's probably a little over 5 ounces. My rough guess, but it's a really, really good carrying knife. I enjoyed carrying this. I've carried it a fair bit. It still has the original edge on it. And even though it does have the original edge, and I've done a lot of cardboard cutting with this, being this time in December, getting a lot of packages in, getting ready for Christmas, and it's still cutting very, very well. Love that recurve, and it's cut with a belly here. So like I said, I wasn't going to do a lot of cut tests and demonstrations, just to show you it's very durable and it does cut very well. It's got a strong tip on there. The way the grind angles go coming in like that. Let's zoom in a little closer. So you can see that blade shape and the way it comes in and with that grind angle. So you get almost 4 facets right at the tip. Very strong, very good as a puncturing knife, and awesome as a slicer. Very, very good in hand. The fit and finish on this, I'm going to call it very good. At the price range that it's at, I couldn't ask for it to be better. Like the sharpener's choil comes out far enough. Everything's made well. It fits well. I will probably, if I'm going to keep this knife, if I don't sell it, I will probably round over these edges, especially on the belly side here on the G10. It's chamfered, but I would do it just a little bit more, and maybe a little bit more at the back too, just to give it a little bit more of a softer feel. but that's a totally a point of preference, and it's not a problem whatsoever. The pros and the cons on this knife, I really don't have any cons, except for some people don't like recurves. And so if you don't like recurves, this knife might not be for you. And the other one is, again, a preference thing. Some people like really deep pocket clips. Certainly some people love left side pocket clips, lefties especially. Unfortunately, there's no option for a left pocket clip, and it's not a deep carry pocket clip. Again, those aren't necessarily cons. Those are preference things. And this, I really don't mind. I've been starting to like pocket clips. For a while, I was really going big on wanting ultra deep carry pocket clips. And those are nice. But to be totally honest with you, I have been finding that sometimes it's easier to pull a knife out of your pocket if it's not super deep. You get the extra texture of a couple screws out here and everything. And when you go to grab it right here to pull it out, it just always comes out, especially when you've got a pocket clip that is as strong as this one. And that might be a con for some people because this holds very, very tough. It really puts some pressure down there. Not enough to be a problem. Some people would prefer it this way. I really like it. This thing's not coming out of my pocket unless I want it to. But when I want it to, it's not overly difficult. I like that it's skeletonized, or it would be even heavier. That's a good pro. They did a really good sharpening job from the factory, especially on a $27 knife. That's a big pro. And it's so comfortable in just about any grip. That is an awesome pro. And the fact that you get this all with D2 steel, and I believe that this is genuine D2 steel. I did a little bit of corrosion testing on it. I did a little bit of durability, edge retention testing on it. And I really like it an awful lot. So I'm starting to love Kuby knives. Love that they're doing their own designs on a lot of knives. I did respond to one person on the previous video. The guy was saying that that was a ZT knife copy. And I told him, you know, I really don't follow ZT knives because it's a brand I'll never buy because I just can't afford ZT knives. Maybe not never, but there's a very tiny chance that I would ever buy a ZT knife, and solely because of the price. And so I don't follow pricier knives. I just don't follow them. And so if a knife looks somewhat like another knife, I don't know. Sometimes I know, sometimes I don't. And it turns out, no, that knife really doesn't look much like a ZT knife. It's kind of like pickup trucks. Can you really tell that much of a difference between a Ford, a Chevy, or a Dodge? They are so much alike that the differences are very small. Certainly the differences between knives very often are much greater than the differences between other products that we don't call clone. You know, so we need to get off of this thing of we're trying to call everything a clone of everything else. And unless it has the brand name of that other company on there, or it is very clearly an attempt at an exact clone, let's not worry about it, guys. Just buy the knife. Yeah, sure, designers need their credit, and they generally get their credit. And people who can afford the more expensive knives, I say more power to you and good on you. But those of us who can't, we're left with good options made by other brands like this Kuby. So that's pretty much the essence of my video. I'll put links down below for Kuby knife. So there you go. Thanks so much for watching my video. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you to everybody who's been sending in some money to help me get a new camera, a new cell phone, so that I can make my videos back at their better quality. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, everybody, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.